She ignored you. She thought she had better options. She watched your messages pile up, smirking as she left them on read. She thought your silence meant weakness, that your absence meant loss. But what she didn't see coming was the storm you were becoming. She mistook your pain for passivity, but you were loading, not losing. And now it's her ego that's bleeding. If you've ever been ignored by a girl you once cared for, if you've sat in the silence waiting for a reply that never came, then this message is for you. This video will change you. It will remind you of what was taken. It will give you back what she tried to steal, your edge. Drop this in the comments now. I'm done chasing, because this is no longer about her. It's about who you become when she stops paying attention and you stop begging for it. Number 1, she ignored you. She didn't just ignore your message. She erased your presence like you never mattered, like everything you gave, every laugh you shared, every part of yourself you handed over in faith was disposable the moment someone more exciting came along. And while you sat there staring at your screen, refreshing the app, replaying memories you thought meant something, she was out there basking in the attention of men who only saw her surface, not her soul. And in that cold silence, something inside you cracked. But what you didn't see then was that this was the moment that would divide your life. The boy who needed her and the man who no longer does. Every time she didn't respond, you convinced yourself she was just busy, that she'd eventually come back. But that's the lie men tell themselves when they've wrapped their identity around a woman who treats them like an option. The truth is, she saw your effort. She read your messages. She looked at your name on her screen and chose to ignore it, not because she was too overwhelmed, but because she didn't feel urgency, because the power dynamic had shifted. And in that shift, you became disposable in her mind. The longer you waited, the more she saw you as weak. Because in this modern dating arena, attention is currency, and whoever gives the most loses. And as hard as it is to hear, your mistake wasn't in loving her. It was in loving her more than you respected yourself. She had no fear of losing you, and that was your failure, because a man who is easily available is a man she stops respecting. You fed the illusion by constantly showing up, replying fast, asking if she was okay, checking in, proving your loyalty to someone who already decided you were convenient, not essential. She didn't reject you because you were boring or because you didn't offer value. She did it because you offered it without requiring anything back. What you need to understand now is simple. When a woman loses respect, the connection dies. No matter how much history you think you have, no matter how good you were to her, no matter how deep you feel it went, she will forget everything. She will smile in selfies, flirt with strangers, act like she's thriving. Not because she is, but because she's feeding on the illusion of options. Your pain fuels her power because she knows deep down you're still watching, still hoping, and you must cut the cord. Not slowly, not politely, not let's be friends. Slow death cordiality. You need to walk, not just away from her, but away from the man you were when you needed her. You need to reclaim your time, your energy, your hunger. Every second you wait, hoping for a text, a call, a sign, is another second she learns she owns your self-worth. The antidote is not rage, it's redirection. You don't become powerful by texting her again with a long paragraph. You become powerful by using that same energy to build something that makes her presence irrelevant. Learn something new. Stack your cash. Stack your physique. Stack your focus. Become so consumed with evolving that you forget why you even cared. Here's what always happens. When you stop giving her attention, she will feel it like a shadow behind her. When you stop orbiting, she'll sense the silence. That's when her curiosity will kick in. But by then, you won't care. That's the goal. You need to train your body to outlast the loneliness, to eat with discipline when no one is watching, to wake up and grind without praise. Life doesn't reward who's nice. It rewards who's undeniable. You're not in a battle with her. You're in a war with your old habits, the habit of chasing, the habit of begging, the habit of proving your worth to someone who never deserved it. Kill that habit, and you become dangerous. A man who needs nothing is feared and silently respected. Stop trying to get her back. Stop posting stories hoping she sees them. Stop the cycle. Start the transformation. Become the version of yourself that wouldn't tolerate being ignored. You weren't left behind. You were being redirected. Every rejection is a redirection. Your job now isn't to win her back. It's to become so strong that she would crumble knowing what she walked away from. Don't message her. Don't stalk her online. Don't fake your glow up. Live it. Show it with results. Let your evolution be the revenge. You'll know you've won, not when she texts back, but when you don't even care anymore. Number 2, you disappeared. When you finally stopped reaching out, not in anger, not in bitterness, but with the quiet finality of a man who no longer needs to explain himself, everything changed. Not just for her, but for you. Silence isn't emptiness, it's transformation. In your disappearance, you didn't lose her. You found the version of yourself that had been buried beneath years of trying to be enough for someone who only measured your value by how available you were. That version of you isn't a shadow of the past. It's the foundation of everything you're about to become. You disappeared, not to punish her, but to protect yourself from becoming a man whose value depends on a reply. While she was scrolling, smiling, swiping, you were refining, cutting away the weak parts, starving the part of you that needed her attention to feel alive. The process wasn't easy. It was brutal because healing isn't pretty. It's raw and real and full of quiet nights where you wanted to go back, check, or say something, but you didn't. That choice, that restraint, is what builds men from the ashes of boys. Disappearing isn't vanishing, it's evolving without broadcasting it. When a man removes himself from what wounded him, the world notices, not because he's making noise, but because his silence carries weight, a presence that no longer begs for acknowledgement. Most never understand that when you finally stop giving her the validation she never earned, she starts to wonder. She starts to feel the space she took for granted. By then, it's too late. Your disappearance is not weakness, its power is reloaded. When you choose your peace over your past, when you cut off the force of emotional access, when you become the man who doesn't need closure to move forward, everything about you shifts. Your energy changes, your voice deepens, your gaze sharpens because you're no longer someone trying to be accepted. You're someone who has already accepted who you are and what you won't tolerate. Most men try to hold on to their worth by staying visible, by posting, by trying to trigger her attention. But that's not growth. That's theater. You weren't born to perform. You were built to lead. Leaders don't chase crowds. They create their own path, even if it's lonely at first. She will feel your absence more than she ever acknowledged your presence. Not because she suddenly cares, but because she finally realizes what it means to not be able to return to something that once begged to stay. And in that silence, as you disappear, you're not disappearing from life. You're disappearing from her illusion, the one where she thought you'd always be a safety net, always be an emotional ATM, always be available without value. You stopped that cycle. And now everything changes because you disappeared into discipline. You started lifting not just weights, but your standards, your vision, your self-control. You began cutting off the cheap dopamine. No scrolling, no chasing, no watching her stories trying to decode hints that were never meant for you. And in that digital detox, you reprogrammed your priorities. The man who disappears from her life doesn't vanish. He reclaims his timeline, he reinvests his mornings, he rebuilds his name, and most importantly, he rewrites the script of his life where he is no longer the character begging for love. He's the author deciding what deserves a chapter. If you're still thinking of texting her, stop. If you're checking her profile, stop. If you're replaying that last conversation, let it fade. You don't need closure, you need clarity. And clarity is born in silence. You don't need her explanation. You need your evolution. That means creating new goals, not emotional traps. That means spending time around men who challenge you, not coddle your self-pity. That means putting your name on something that matters, a business, a project, a mission that outlives your pain. This is the part no one tells you. Disappearance is a door, not an ending. It's the beginning of your real life. When you disappear, you stop waiting. You stop watching, you stop needing, and that's when the world begins to respond differently, not because it's changed, but because you have. She will try to test the silence eventually. A meme reaction, a random hey, a birthday text. Don't reply. Don't be pulled back into the story you already outgrew. Your silence is your sword now. Wield it with honor. Use it to guard your peace. Use it to command respect without speaking a word, because nothing speaks louder than a man who stopped explaining himself to people who never deserved access to him in the first place. That's the man who disappears not to run, but to rise. Her ego starts to crumble. She was so sure you'd wait, so confident in her ability to leave you on read, to disappear for days, to treat your care like background noise, and still come back to find you exactly where she left you, craving, hoping, breaking silently. But something shifted, not because you told her, not because you begged her to notice, but because your absence started to echo louder than your presence ever did. For the first time, she looked around and you weren't there. Not in her notifications, not in her orbit, not in her mirror of power. That silence began tearing holes in the fantasy she built around herself. At first, she blamed it on distraction, convinced herself you were playing the same games she used. But when days passed and you didn't come back, when her inbox stayed empty of your reassurance, when her selfies didn't provoke your praise, her mind turned inward, not out of regret, but from confusion, because she expected collapse and got composure, expected drama and got discipline. And that breaks the ego more than any confrontation. The calm rejection, the lack of reaction, the unapologetic silence of a man who has moved on, not with noise but with purpose. A woman feeds her sense of control through attention, and when that attention disappears, she doesn't just miss you. She questions her reflection, questions her worth, questions if she's slipping. And that fear, that sudden vulnerability, is when the crumble begins, quiet at first but irreversible. She starts checking your page, not for nostalgia, but for clues, because now her confidence is cracking and ego doesn't admit emptiness easily. It searches for explanations in screenshots, in stories, in the spaces you used to fill. And when it finds nothing, not even a breadcrumb of attention, that's when it spirals. This is where your power truly begins, not when you make her jealous, but when you don't need to. When your life continues without her shadow, when your growth speaks louder than her absence. Don't confuse her reactions for love, they're not. They're withdrawals. She was addicted to the emotional control, to the safety of your attention, and now she's cold without it. And like any addict, she'll reach, not because she values you now, but because her ego is starving. This is where most men fail. They confuse the check-in for redemption. They see the comment, the like, the message, and mistake it for care. It's not care, it's curiosity. It's control testing its strength. Do not answer. Do not return. Your discipline here isn't just personal, it's spiritual. You are no longer who you were when you first gave her everything. You are the man who withstood silence, rejection, loss, and rose from it. You are the man who didn't just disappear, you evolved. And now her world is missing something, not your presence, your submission. And she feels that difference. So what do you do now? You don't celebrate. You don't seek revenge. You master the quiet power of not responding, because your future doesn't live in her regret. It lives in your rebirth. Keep building, keep learning, keep leveling up in silence. You never needed her attention. You needed this moment, the moment she realizes the man she thought would always wait, walked away. You level up. She thought she left you behind, but what she really did was awaken a version of you she was never meant to meet. A version that doesn't beg, doesn't pause, doesn't wait. Because when the pain finally settled, when the silence became normal, you discovered that the absence of her approval was the birth of your potential. And from that place, you didn't recover. You rebuilt. You level up not by trying to look better for her, but by becoming so consumed with your mission that she becomes irrelevant. Because once you stop seeking closure and start building something that doesn't require her belief in you, your entire identity changes. And the moment you choose the gym over the text, the book over the memory, the silence over the bait, you don't just get stronger, you become unreachable. And when a man becomes unreachable, he becomes untouchable. That is where true masculinity begins, not in how loud he is, but in how disciplined he stays when temptation knocks with a familiar smile. Because you're not chasing revenge, you're chasing excellence. And that pursuit leaves no time for proving anything to someone who already underestimated your worth. You rise not through noise, but through movement. Early mornings, sharpened routines, the decision to delete what distracts you and double down on what defines you. In that space, you meet parts of yourself she never stayed long enough to understand. The focused you, the driven you, the unstoppable you, who doesn't text to be noticed but builds to be remembered. This is where everything changes. Not because she comes back, but because even if she does, you won't. You've changed the game. You stop playing hers. Your clothes fit differently now, not because you're dressing for her reaction, but because you're molding your body like armor. Your tone is different, not to impress, but because you don't waste energy convincing anyone anymore. You walk into rooms like you own them, not because someone told you to be confident, but because you've been through fires she'll never understand. And you didn't just survive, you mastered the burn. She thought ignoring you would shrink you. Instead, it stretched you. She thought silence would break you. Instead, it built you. She thought losing her was your defeat. Instead, it was your rebirth. What you're becoming now can't be undone. You're not checking her profile. You're checking your bank. You're not worried if she misses you. You're building a life she couldn't comprehend, because that's the level now. Not proving you're okay, but becoming someone so focused on legacy that her memory can't distract you anymore. You read more, speak less, lift heavier, love smarter. You no longer accept crumbs from women, from friends, from life, because you've tasted solitude and realized it's better than fake support. You've walked through pain and found purpose beneath it. You're not healing, you're thriving. That's what leveling up really means. Not showing her what she lost, showing yourself what you're capable of. This isn't about her anymore. It's about reclaiming every part of you that you gave away trying to be loved. That ends now. You love yourself through action, through choices, through standards, through relentless pursuit of growth. You don't get stronger hoping she notices. You get stronger when it wouldn't matter if she did. When you stop being available for the wrong energy. When you stop accepting less because you fear being alone. You level up when your peace is no longer for sale. When your goals outweigh your urges. When your mission becomes sacred. That's the life you're building now. And she'll feel it, not through what you say, but through what you don't. Not through what you post, but through what you do. That's your legacy now. Silent, powerful, unshakable. You're not the man who needed her anymore. You're the man she'll never meet again. Number 5, you become the standard. She once laughed at the idea of losing you. Now she measures every man against your shadow. Because in your absence, you didn't just evolve. You elevated, and in that quiet ascension, without announcement, without revenge, without looking back, you became the example she can no longer reach. And every time she meets someone new, your silence sits in the room like a ghost, reminding her what real strength feels like. Calm, complete, and gone for good. Becoming the standard means you no longer seek validation from anyone who doesn't understand your path. And that includes her, because what you're building now has nothing to do with her memory and everything to do with who you've chosen to become. And while she scrolls looking for replacements, you build systems, routines, and philosophies that no woman can destabilize because your value doesn't rise or fall with attention. It multiplies in silence, it strengthens in structure. And the man who was once ignored is now the man they study but can't replicate. Because discipline, clarity, and restraint are the rarest currencies in today's world. And you hold all three in abundance, earned through your own ashes, earned through nights. She thought you were crying, but you were planning, training, ascending. You no longer crave apology or closure, because when you become the standard, their regret becomes irrelevant. And your worth is no longer tied to how much they see or how loudly they come back, but how deeply you've detached, how focused you've become, how unbothered you stay. Because peace is your new power. And the more peaceful you get, the more magnetic your life becomes. And they will feel that shift, not because you said anything, but because your silence turned into a presence no one can fake. And from that space, you operate differently. You speak less. You observe more. You don't give out energy just because someone returns. You measure the weight of their actions, not the sound of their promises. And you hold your standard high because you finally realize it was never about her. It was always about the version of you that needed to be born. You stop chasing dopamine. You stop living for external reaction. You start creating value without permission. You train your body not to impress, but to endure. You train your mind not to argue, but to lead. You build your business, your health, your purpose like a fortress because no one is coming to save you. And that realization doesn't make you bitter. It makes you powerful. And yes, she will reach back. They always do. But when you've become the standard, you don't entertain energy that isn't aligned. You don't get pulled into small games. You walk with purpose. And that walk alone is what makes her regret irreversible. The silent shift that makes her rethink everything. She will meet men who talk more but do less. Men who flatter her but crumble in pressure. Men who show up loud but disappear at the first boundary. And with every failed connection, she'll remember you. Not for what you said, but for what you became. And that is the truth of your legacy. You are no longer someone's memory. You are a monument to your own resilience. And every day you show up with clarity, with structure, with purpose. You become the standard that others try to imitate but cannot sustain, because this version of you was earned, not downloaded. So don't respond, don't revisit, don't explain. Let your presence, your elevation, your unshakable direction be the message. And when they say you've changed, say nothing, because you didn't change for them. You changed for the man you promised yourself you'd become when she ignored you, and that man, the standard, never looks back. Number 6, you outgrow her memory. She thought she could haunt you forever, that even if she left, her absence would stay stitched into your thoughts. That her memory would follow you into every relationship, every success, every silence. But what she never predicted was this: you wouldn't just move on. You would outgrow the very version of you who needed her. And with every day of evolution, she becomes smaller. Not because she changed, but because you did. And now her memory isn't pain. It's proof of how far you've come. To outgrow her memory is not to forget, but to remember without pain. To revisit the moments she left you hanging, questioning, aching, and feel nothing but gratitude, because that heartbreak became your foundation. That rejection became your reason. And the silence she gave you became the stillness you used to master yourself. Because every time she ignored you, you learned that your validation never belonged in someone else's pocket. And now you don't flinch at her name. You don't wonder where she is, because you've created a life so full, so focused, so rich in purpose that her memory no longer fits into your future. Her face doesn't trigger you. Her voice doesn't echo. The places that reminded you of her now remind you of who you became after her. And that's the beauty of growth. The memory fades not by force, but by evolution. And when you truly outgrow someone, they stop being relevant, not because you hate them, but because they no longer exist in the world you're building. You no longer dream of her approval because your days are filled with vision, your mind occupied with direction, your heart guarded by purpose. You are no longer comparing others to her. You're attracting people who match your new frequency, who understand your silence, who respect your grind. You don't need closure, you don't need revenge, you don't need her to finally say she regrets it. You don't even need her to know what you've become. You just need to keep showing up for the man who rose from her rejection and never stopped building. This is what true peace looks like. Walking through places where her memory used to follow you like a shadow and realizing you're not haunted. You're healed. You no longer wait for an apology. You no longer hope she checks your story. You no longer flinch when you hear her name, because the man who was once destroyed by her silence is now driven by his own standards, and her memory is no longer weight. It's a feather in the wind, a ghost with no home in your present. That's how you know you've outgrown her. You're no longer trying to prove anything. You're living a life she never had the patience to understand. And if she returns, if her name pops up, if her voice finds its way back into your inbox, you don't react. You don't entertain. Not because you're bitter, but because the version of you who would have replied doesn't live here anymore. You've outgrown her. Why walking away with dignity changes the outcome. Not just in distance, but in value, in self-worth, in vision. You no longer need to be seen by her. You see yourself. You no longer need to be chosen. You choose yourself daily through action, through discipline, through decisions that elevate you above the man who once broke in the silence she gave. She doesn't have power anymore. Not because she lost it, but because you took it back quietly, permanently. You became your own closure, and that is the final transformation. You were never weak for caring. You were human. You were never foolish for loving. You were real. But the moment she ignored you, she gifted you something more powerful than attention. She gave you a mirror, and what you did with that reflection made you legendary. You didn't just recover, you redefined yourself. You didn't just move on, you evolved beyond anything she could imagine. And now, standing here with your silence sharpened into steel, your discipline rebuilt brick by brick, your energy reclaimed and sacred, you are no longer the version of you that waited. You are no longer the echo of the boy she left behind. You are the standard, the storm, the story. And no matter what comes next, she doesn't hold the pen. You do. This wasn't just about her. It never was. It was about you seeing how low you could fall and how high you were willing to rise. It was about discovering that true power isn't in being noticed, chased, or chosen. It's in choosing yourself consistently, relentlessly, unapologetically. And now you walk different. You speak different. You demand more. Not from others, but from yourself. You don't move to impress. You move to evolve. And every step forward from this moment is a step into the man she couldn't control. The man they all underestimated. The man who doesn't ask for a seat at the table. Conclusion: the cost of taking a good man for granted, he builds his own. If this hit different, don't just scroll. Subscribe for more raw truth. Like if you felt it. Comment: I don't chase, I attract. If this was your turning point, share this with a brother who needs it.